Pikuniku is a game released back in 2019, but this version I played on Stadia only came out now in 2021. And much like my other Stadia reviews I have done recently, I will be addressing the fact that it's on Stadia a bit more in the graphics. But regardless, Pikuniku, which I think is supposed to sound like picnic, was published by Developer Digital, which to me tells me at least that this game is within some level of quality, as this publisher has become one of the most successful and well-known publishers in the indie scene, and for good reason. They have made quite a lot of games I personally enjoy a lot, and even the ones I didn't love, I thought that they were at least unique and interesting from a gameplay perspective, or they have some kind of gimmick. And I think for a game like this, it's good to have that reputation behind you, since at first look, this game could look a bit too much like any other platformer with simplistic graphics that you can find by the metric ton on Steam. And especially in addition to that, it being such a small team of developers. They're called Sector Dub, and in the Steam page the developers are individually credited, which is kinda crazy. But enough about that, because if you're watching this video then it already interested you enough to want to know what this game is like and whether or not it's good. And I will tell you right now that it is a pretty good game. So let's actually start with the review now. With the story here following the adventure of Piku as he's woken up by a ghost in this cave and is led to explore the outside world, where not only is our protagonist thought of as a monster, which is used mostly for comedic effect early on in the game, but also that in this world a company has been taking all the trash and also all the natural resources in exchange for money, a lot of it, working as a critique of capitalism and corporations in a way that doesn't feel heavy-handed, as this is a very light-hearted and mostly comical game. But I'll be honest, I did not expect it to even have those elements in it, and not only that they would be handled so well. It's hard to talk about it without spoiling, but I will say there's just small details that allow it to go beyond just saying like money bad, nature good kind of points, and once again also doing it for the sake of comedy. For example, you can talk to one of the town inhabitants that is a corn farmer, and he will say something along the lines of, I have all the money I need, but I really wish I could have some corn right now. And it's small ironic jokes like that that really help with the lightheartedness of the overall story. That and how goofy both villain and the good characters are, and how they interact. It's definitely a type of comedy that might not be for everyone, but I personally really enjoyed it. There's also some visual storytelling here that is surprisingly good, even with the simplistic graphics. Like for example, a big part of the villain's past is never explained through dialogue, but then one of the objectives will have you exploring a cave that through the regular level design of the game ends up telling a story that you can speculate on, and that ends up adding really well to the world and its themes. And overall, story-wise, I just didn't expect any of these at all, and I was very much caught by surprise, and I'm sure that helped. But even so, I still really enjoyed both themes and the comedy here, regardless. But the humor might not be for everyone, and that's something you have to know for yourself. Do you enjoy this kind of comedy of dumb and naive characters and their interactions that for the most part are very wholesome? It's wholesome comedy. I don't know if that's a term that's been coined yet, but hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say. Anyways, moving on to the gameplay. It's fairly simple, as you play as a small red ball with eyes and legs. Basic move wise, you can of course move left and right and also jump within the 2D perspective. More interestingly here though is that you can also kick, and when you do your legs extend quite a lot. And you can also roll as if you had no legs. And the reason why you have both these moves probably because of how physics-based the gameplay, both for platforming and some random activities like, maybe some challenge where you play basketball with a watermelon, things like that in this 2D perspective are very simple but still quite fun. And then we also have some light puzzles, nothing that will challenge you, mostly stuff like move a rock to create a platform or press some switch to open up a path. What there is here to add to the puzzles and just overall progression of the game is these equipable items. There are two types. First, the primarily aesthetic ones that mostly just serve to change the character's appearance of your character with some exceptions, and as you receive them as rewards for doing side missions, but also can just buy them with coins you can find scattered around. But then there is another set of equipables that have very specific uses, like for example you can get a watering can hat that allows you to water some plants that grow to create a platform that allows you to reach some place. And most of these items are like that, basically keys to open up different areas that you couldn't get access to before. Do I dare call it Metroidvania-like? Yeah, sure, but very lightly. And that's kinda how the gameplay overall feels. It's very simplistic. The thing helping it is the diversity, interchanging from the random activities and the puzzling and the platforming does keep it somewhat fresh through the already fairly short game, even if individually none of these are very deep or would be very engaging for long. The one real complaint I do have with the gameplay though, it's the physics side of it. It can just be frustrating at times, especially around pushing and kicking stuff around. I found it really annoying to try and set something in a specific spot without overshooting it, or even just putting them in such a way that it makes the game unable to progress. And that making you have to restart the game and reset the area. But it can be annoying as it's not a game where you will die often and the checkpoints can be fairly far apart, making moments like these very frustrating. And a big part of why this happens is the elongated kick. It just kicks too much. It's hard to describe with text, but hopefully the gameplay makes it a little bit of justice. It's like it always just keeps whatever you're trying to move a bit too far. I get why they did this, as sometimes you do have to kick things rather quick, especially in boss fights, and doing it without this elongated feature, it would be quite annoying, even more annoying than this problem, but it's still a problem. And the problem isn't that you kick long, mind you, because that by itself is fine. The problem is that the legs don't always extend the same, as it's very dependent on your position and the path the kick takes, making the kicking sometimes be quite random, which is, I guess, the real problem. Regardless though, the game for the most part is fine. Variety is really its salvation, like I already mentioned. Now let's move on to the graphics. The game looks good, it's very clean and very bright and colorful with very round and bubbly characters. It's nice looking and also very kid friendly. This game could honestly be played by a younger audience given its simplicity. Also because of this look, it also makes most contextual clues gameplay wise very obvious, even if they weren't obvious enough with the thought bubbles that just tell you what items you need to use in each place. But anyways, graphically the game looks good. It's simple but stylized enough that it doesn't look generic in the slightest. Now, in a more technical way, honestly, this was the best experience so far with Stadia. It was one that I saw the least compression artifacts and or frame dips, and of course a big part of it is probably because it's a lot less graphically demanding than other games I've reviewed on Stadia, and also because all of the solid colors and the 2D perspective of the game probably make it easier to avoid those problems regardless. Playing on Stadia, it was good. No real issues this time around, or at least none that was too noticeable. Moving on to the soundtrack, it sounds good. It's a very simple and cheerful sound with a very rhythmic feel, if that makes any sense. It fits with the aesthetic of the game. It has a sense of laid backness to it, and it works really well with the gameplay. It was surprisingly enjoyable despite its simplicity, and to an extent it was even catchy to me. Personally, I really liked it. And overall, the whole game I really liked despite its issues. I think for me the standout was the story, which I just didn't expect at all. Usually in games like this, it's really just placed for laughs, and the moral or message is often simple or just not very cohesive, but here it really worked, and that's commendable. As to me, it managed to stay funny without sacrificing that bit of the game. And so I am giving Pikuniku a 7 out of 10. It's pretty good. Recommendations wise, well, if you're in the same or similar situation as me, then of course you could just play this game for free, quote unquote, or just actually play for free. It was also given away at the Epic Game Store. Then absolutely, it will be a nice afternoon if you enjoy the humor. Now, if you're paying for this game, it does sell for about $13, which is not expensive, but this is a 3-hour game, or maybe even less, so be aware of that. Also, be aware that this game goes on sale often, and if PC is your platform, it is pretty much on every official storefront, so you can probably find it on sale on any of those platforms for pretty cheap. Regardless of your decision though, I hope that this video helped you in it, and regardless of that, I hope that you enjoyed watching, and if so, please consider subscribing, liking, and even commenting, all things that you can do for free here on YouTube. And regardless of that, I hope you're having a good day, and goodbye.